What did we learn yesterday?
How to build a seating app.
Yeah, we got over the finish line. What were some victory moments for you guys?
Keeping up with you.
Yeah.
Definitely a victory for me.
Believe it or not, other than maybe the last stretch there, I think I had over half the class following along with me. So I know it was right on the edge of too fast there. And I'm curious to see what the feedback will be at the end of the week. But I do think we were walking that fine line between too fast and things sinking in there. But feel free to let me know if it felt like otherwise, either now or in the feedback survey. Anything that kind of clicked yesterday for you that wasn't clicking before? Anything, any general feelings, anything you learned yesterday where you're like, oh, I read that in Free Code Camp 10 times and yesterday I got it? Or any general thoughts on JavaScript and how it's going so far?
I feel like for me it's like I understand it when you're going over and you're speaking about it, but free code can't be having me like ready to punch the air in the wall and fight because I can't pass something or it's just a space or a letter and I just be sitting in something for so long.
Yeah, so I don't know how long Latonia's class is going to go tomorrow. So if you have some free code camp exercises, Latonia and Karen can kind of tag team on that and help you guys through those exercises. So that is one thing I will say is if you have a list of things that you got stuck on, or maybe even things that you got it to work and don't really understand why it's working that way, feel free to bring that up tomorrow. And if it doesn't get solved there, try and bring it to office hours. And if it doesn't get solved there, schedule a one-on-one with me, because that free code camp, I think to your point, Nicole, of you can learn it and you can see it and you can think you understand it, but then when you go to do it, it's really hard if you don't have that concept behind you, right? So definitely want to make sure that if you're identifying some concepts where you're like, I really need help here, or like, I know this is the syntax, but I don't know why it's the syntax. Feel free to bring those questions to me or to office hours or to class tomorrow, and we'll figure out a way to make sure that all of that is sinking in.
I also, Nicole, are you clicking on the help thing and watching the video?
Yeah, so like the last 2 days, the videos have just not been working at all. And I think that's what Max was saying before, but I just been trying to read like the other hint. And sometimes even then it's like all different words, but just the same example. So it's like a little bit the same, but I'm still like rereading it and trying it multiple times. But I'm still getting through it, but very slow, like very slow. So
Free Code Camp is in the process of doing some upgrades to like their most popular courses, their responsive web design by far. And Free Code Camp is a 501c3, which means they're a not-for-profit or nonprofit, right? So oftentimes they are dealing with like thousands of users, and then they're trying to figure out like, hey, how can we do this on a budget, still support all those users, and swap out our most popular curriculum right now. So a lot of their developers aren't full-time. They're actually just volunteers who help maintain the platform. So I'm not surprised whenever they do a major upgrade, things sometimes get a little wonky there. So I'm not like super surprised that they're running into issues. The one thing I will say is that I think most of their videos are on YouTube. So if you go to the Free Code Camp YouTube channel, it's not quite as convenient of like just clicking through on the problem, but I'm pretty sure, and I can't say this with certainty, but I'm pretty sure you could just search for the name of the problem in Free Code Camp and find that same video that way.
yeah, that's kind of what I ended up doing, was going to YouTube and doing Free Code Camp, and they didn't have like the exact problems, but they have like the overall, like what is a string and what is array, and they would do examples. So I just like sat through those and try to apply it to the courses.
Cool.
The 3-hour Free Code Camp video that I have posted in our private channel, and it has timestamps on it. And with the timestamps, it tells you what is accomplished in the little frame. So there's that too. And then on the W3 thing, they have a whole JavaScript. So one day I was doing something not even class related, and I went in there and I searched something, and then it says try it yourself. And then when you click on try it yourself, it gives you a whole explanation. And I made a grid, and I did a whole bunch of stuff that I was playing around with. There's that too. It's called I think it's called w3schools.com. So
Yeah,
a couple
just
of
for
different resources before you punch that you can use.
If
Yeah, but really-
only we had some links in today's outline that were linking right to W3 schools with the try it yourself button.
see, I've used W3 schools before, but I was using it when we were doing our projects and it was like time for us to do our homework. I would do it on W3 there first. So I guess I can use it for my homework now too.
Yep,
That
lots
was
of
the
great
perfect
resources in
segue.
there. Yeah, thank you. And definitely try and share those resources in the regular CIC Student C3 one, not the private one, only because I probably may have some commentary about it, like, wow, this is awesome, or like, this would really help apply to this, but also because if you share it in the general C3 channel, it is still a private channel, it just has me in it. Then I can add it to the outline so that future classes can also have those resources. So I would just ask that you post them there, use the back channel for whatever you want, but I would ask that you post those resources there just for future cohorts as well.
I was trying to get feedback from the class so that I could share it. So I guess you would be a good judge too. Like if it's bad, then we could scrap it. But I was just trying to see if it would help anybody. And then if the people said, oh, that was very helpful, then I could say pass it on to future cohorts. But again, you would be a good judge of that. So
Yeah. I did try it though. When you did the first weekend you put it out, I was like, that was my main mission was to watch that. And I literally crashed, fell asleep and like halfway through it. So I was like, okay, I got to start it over when I'm more energized.
Cool. Anything else from yesterday? Are we feeling accomplished? Are we feeling like we can make things? The good news is I realized that I probably did the projects out of order. So today we are going to do like a little warm up on a palindrome checker. Which a palindrome is when the word is spelled the same way forward and backwards. It is considered a palindrome. And it is a free code camp exercise. So I am going to actually do it in free code camp with you guys. We're going to touch on regular expressions a little bit, or regexes or regexes. I've heard it both ways. And then we are going to dive into a calculator in the browser. So I realized today when I was doing all the prep work for the calculator, I was like, I probably should have done this before the movie seats. This project is easier than the movie seat one. So the good news is that hopefully class will be a little bit easier today, but again, this is all about getting the practice, right? Because we don't expect you guys to be JavaScript masters at the end of week 2 of JavaScript. Hopefully we're getting a little bit more confident, and we've got an entire week of JavaScript coming up next week before we hand it over to Ryan. And Ryan's going to start working with you on APIs and how can we start using this data, right? So Ryan's going to do all the concepts with you. And Ryan is great because he takes all of these concepts and really technical acronyms and all of these things and breaks it down for you in a way to understand, hey, how can I interact with the internet in my own application, right? And then from there, it comes back to me and we dive into React. And React is a great way to build interactive apps. So we've got about half of our students who are like, man, React is awesome. I love it. I want to use it in my capstone. And we've got the other half of the students who are like, yeah, React is cool, but I want to just focus on what I've been working on already. And either way is completely fine. It is optional to do your capstone in React. And that's a decision that you don't have to make until you get to the end of the React module. With that said, I am hoping that everyone is starting to touch on their capstone. Everyone should be at the point now where they're starting to wireframe out some screens. They're starting to create their HTML files. They're starting to do a little bit of styling there. And a good reminder of you should be doing a one-on-one with me at least every other week. And even if it's just, hey, here's where I'm at on my capstone, don't be embarrassed. Don't be afraid to say, like, I don't have any HTML for it, right? Just having that capstone in the back of your mind, because as class progresses, you're really going to want to dive into that, right? And spend more and more time as it goes. So just keep that in the back of your head. Of your capstone is not something we're forgetting about. And we do have a project week coming up soon, where we're going back to the feedback app, and we're going to start taking some of the JavaScript principles that we have learned in the past couple weeks and layering that in, along with the API principles that Ryan will be teaching you not next week, but the following week. And then we go into React, and then we go into backend, and before you know it, the program will be over. So any questions, any comments, any concerns before we dive into our little warm up on Free Code Camp?
Do we need a folder for today? That's the part that slows me down.
Yes, you will. And we are only making the calculator app today.
And did we do that before? What did we just do? Not the
We
movie.
did a tip calculator.
Oh.
Today, we're going to do an actual calculator in the browser.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. So I'm going to get started with a tool. Actually, I'm going to pull up I'm going to go Free Code Camp. I'm going to go to the menu and the curriculum, and I'm going to pull up the JavaScript algorithm section. And then I'm going to go all the way down to the JavaScript algorithms and data structures project. And I'm going to open the Palindrome Checker. And if you didn't follow all of that, don't worry, because I'm dumping the link in the live stream. And if I can find it in the Zoom chat. So if you would like to code along with me, you can. If you want to just go along for the ride, that's also okay. This is not going to be homework. This is meant to be kind of like a little warm-up exercise before we dive into our calculator in the browser. So basically, the Palindrome Checker is basically saying if the word passed in, the first word passed in matches the second word passed in reverse, it is a palindrome. So sometimes the Free Code Camp instructions up here, I find more confusing than just scrolling down and seeing what they want us to do. So sometimes it's easier to kind of read the test cases than it is to read the instructions and go off that. So first thing they're doing is they're saying, hey, palindrome I should return a Boolean, because if you take I and spell it in reverse, you get the same word. And that is essentially what a palindrome is. So they're saying that I should not only return a Boolean, but it should return true because it is a palindrome. And then they're saying, hey, there may be some special characters in here that we want to ignore. So if there is an underscore in it, it should also return true, because all we want to care about is the actual letters in it. And then it says race car should return true. But we're going to run into a problem there with that space is going to cause some problems, right? Because we need to make sure that it's only the letters that we're trying to pay attention to. And then we also have not a palindrome. Well, obviously, if you flip not a palindrome, the letters aren't going to line up the same, so that should return false. So let's just dive in here. And the first thing I actually like to do is just run the code the way they have it. So I'm going to come up here, I'm going to hit run the code. You can also hit Command Enter. And we already have some things working in our favor. Palindrome I is already returning a Boolean, right? We're taking in I comes in as the str. The str is always returning true right now, okay? And we have palindrome I is returning true, but really what this function is supposed to do is see if str, if we flip that and do it in reverse, does it equal the same thing? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say const reversed word, and I'm going to do str. Now I need a way to get that string in reverse, right? Because we know I is a string because it's in quotes. So we need to find a way to flip this string around and have it be in reverse. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go right to Google and I'm going to type in W3 schools JavaScript string. I'm going to pop open the first one and you see here, they're all different functions that are built into the string type, right? We can use slice and take out certain characters in the word. So if we wanted only a piece of it, we can also do substring, which is almost doing the same exact thing as slice, right? Taking out a piece of it. We can do things like replacing. So if we swap out the word Microsoft for W3 schools, but I'm looking at all of these and I'm not finding, I'm going to do a command F for the word reverse, and there's nothing in here. So, okay, I'm not seeing anything there, but I'm going to look at JavaScript arrays and look at their methods. And in the JavaScript array methods, there happens to be one, or not, JavaScript arrays. Okay, I know that was on there. Wonder if it's because I'm not in the reference. Go back to the reference and go to JavaScript array. There we go. Here are all of the functions that an array has. And the array has a reverse. And what the reverse is doing is it's saying reverses the order of the elements in an array. Well, that's like exactly what I would like. But the problem is it's in the array itself, right? It's not on a string. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the string documentation. And I'm going to do a search for array. And there's this thing that says split, and it says split a string into an array of substrings. Okay, well, if I can split it, I wonder if I can join them back together. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over to our free code cam, and we're going to say string, and I'm going to split it. And the split is saying, how would you like me to split it up? And I'm going to pass it an empty string. I'm going to say split every letter, which is what that empty string is doing. And then I'm going to console log out my reversed word. So if I run that code, now I get EYE. So every letter is a different letter, is a different item in the array. But because this is now an array, I can call .reverse. And if I run that code again, I see, hey, now I'm getting my things in reverse, right? So my not a palindrome is now upside down. So now that I've got it reversed, I can join everything back together in that array. I don't know if I need the parentheses there. So I do need the quotes. Okay, so if I run that code, now I get race car, I get not a palindrome, and I got my I working in the right direction. So what I can basically do, now that I've got that word reversed, is I can say if the string is equal to the reversed word, it must be a palindrome. Otherwise, it isn't going to be one. So return false. And if I run those tests, now I get some check marks over here. My I should return true. My not a palindrome should return false. So we're making progress. But let's just take a step back here and recover all of this. We're calling palindrome with EYE coming in. EYE comes in as the string. The main goal of a palindrome is to take the string in, reverse the word, and then see if the reversed word is equal to the original word that came in. And if it is, it must be a palindrome. So what we do is we come in here and we say, hey, make a spot for our reversed word to go into. But the problem that we run into is we cannot reverse a string just using JavaScript, but we can reverse an array. And so what we do is we take the string and we split it into an array here. So E is going to be the first item in the array, Y is going to be the second item in the array, and E is going to be the third item in the array. We then reverse the array, but it's still an array. Every letter is in its own index. So then we join them all back together, which is converting the array that we've reversed here back into a string. So we come down here, and now we can just knock our way through them. So it says palindrome I should return true. Well, the problem is it's not returning true, because if we type in what we're trying to test here and then console log out the original word and the reversed word, what we see is that we get our EYE with the underscore at the front and EYE with our underscore at the end. Well, EYE with an underscore at the front isn't going to match the EYE with the underscore at the end. So this brings in the notion of a regular expression. Wouldn't it be cool if we could like tell it, hey, there's going to be a pattern going on here. And if we match a certain pattern, we can replace that part of it. So we are going to switch temporarily to a tool called regexpal.com. And this is linked in the outline. So what we can do is we can use regular expressions to match certain patterns in our string. So if I go down to this test string here and I say my phone number is 555-555-1234. What if we would like to pull out just this part of the string? Well, what we can do is start writing an expression over here that uses certain syntax, and the cheat sheet is over here. So what if we want to say, hey, we would like to match the number 5. So if we type 5 into our regular expression here, it's going to highlight all the 5s. Well, what if I would like to match any part that says 555 with a dash? Now it's showing us, hey, we are matching that one little section in there. So what we can basically do is write some expression up here at the top that's going to match the numbers that we're looking for down here. So if we wanted to get just this section of the area code, we could put our parentheses and say 555 and close the parentheses. But we've got a problem here. I would like to match these part of the parentheses, but a regular expression uses something called a capture group. Basically, what it's trying to say is that parenthesis in the regular expression is reserved for something in the regex land. So basically, we need to escape out this parenthesis. We need to say, hey, we're actually looking for a parenthesis here. We're not looking for some regular expression syntax. So if I put a slash on either side of them, I now have my 555 working. So if we wanted to match on the whole phone number here, we could do a space, and then we can use some special syntax over here. So if we want to say, hey, we're looking for any digit, we can use this /D, and that's going to match on any digit. And then I would like to find the dash, and then I would still like to match on any digit there. So now it's saying, hey, match any number that is 555 that is in parentheses. Then match any 3 digits with a dash between it, and then any 4 more digits. So if we come down here and we delete out a digit, now the whole thing is going, that's not a valid phone number anymore. We're not going to match on any of that. But if I type in any number in its place, I'm able to take all of that out. So there is going to be a free code camp exercise coming your way on regular expressions that's going to build your way up of understanding what each one of these characters is doing. I'm going to put that in as a homework assignment, but it is going to be an optional one. If you are curious about how regular expressions are working, there is a whole section in Free Code Camp, a whole group of exercises to dig into them more. So let's go back into our palindromes here. Basically, what we would like to do is we would like to find any time there is an underscore and replace that with nothing. Basically remove all the underscores from our text. So what we're going to do is for our reversed word, we want to replace. And what are we going to replace? We are going to replace a regular expression. So these two slashes are telling JavaScript anything between the two slashes is going to be a regular expression. That's just the JavaScript syntax. We have strings and numbers and booleans and all of that stuff. The two slashes is how JavaScript knows it's going to be a regular expression. And so what we're going to do is we're going to say find any underscore and replace it with nothing. Remove all the underscores from whatever our reversed word is. So if I console log out our reversed word and I already have that, sorry. So if I go ahead and run my EYE with an underscore, I get the first thing. Well, what's that? That's my string. I also get the second thing, which is my reversed word. And you notice my reversed word no longer has that underscore in it. And if I take out this replace, you'll see both of them have the underscore in it. So we're on the right track, but we want to remove the underscore not only from our reversed word, we also want to remove it from our input coming in. So what I'm going to do is all the way up here at the top, I'm going to say, hey, take our string and then replace any underscore that you find with nothing. Remove all the underscores. So if I run that code, now that we get our EYE should return true, even though it has an underscore in it. So now we've got another problem here of, hey, race car should return true. Well, the problem there is we've got a space in there. So what we can do up here is we can say, hey, if you find an underscore or you find a space, go ahead and replace it. This \s is standing for any white space, which is this \s is telling us, hey, white space in regex. So I come back to my palindrome, I run it, and now I've got race car and not a palindrome working. So the rest of this exercise is just dealing with, hey, how do we take out the rest of the characters that are causing problems? How do we take out the space and the commas and the periods and all of that stuff? Okay, I just talked for a while. Let me open it up for questions. Who wants to take a stab at defining what a regular expression is for? Go for it, Doug.
Finding a pattern of characters in a string.
Yep. And it is often used to either filter out those characters that you're looking for, or in order to validate as well. So if you're filling out a form and it asks for an email address and you say max at and go on and click to the next form field, you know how you get that red text that says this is not a valid email address or these email addresses don't match. That is a regular expression that is running in the browser to validate that input.
Is this something you would use if you were using data or just anything?
Absolutely, yeah. So you would use it a lot for if someone enters their first name and their last name, and you want to make sure that there's a space between their first name and their last name, you could use a regular expression to test that and make sure that there was a space in there somewhere. Or you could use it when you're using your data and you've got 1,000 email addresses and you want to find all the email addresses that are going to yahoo.com. you could use a regular expression to say, given this list of all 1,000 emails, find all of them that have @yahoo.com in them. So it is often used for data validation, whether that data is coming in from a form, whether it's a data set that you're pulling off the internet, no matter where the data is coming from, it is often used for data validation.
I don't understand the part about it reads backwards or forwards.
Okay, so what they're saying is if we take the word E, Y, and E, and then we reverse the word. So we take the word, the letter E, then we take the next letter, which is Y, and then we take the next letter, which is E. Because these two are the exact same input and output, that is a palindrome.
And then any word that's not like that would be false. So that's a true, and then the others are false.
Correct. So they said race car, right? So RACECAR. Well, if we take the last letter R, then the next letter A, then the next letter C, the next letter C. Now you're seeing that even though we are going in reverse here, it is spelling out the same word.
Okay.
But if we take something like nope and spell that out in reverse, this is not the same thing as this. So nope is not a palindrome.
False.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Any questions on that?
Almost, is that a word? Almost.
No, I think it's supposed to be like almost a palindrome, but it isn't. And so that's what they're saying it should return false for.
Okay.
Any other questions on this? We're not finishing off this assignment, but this is a good assignment to show you kind of how this regex is working. I know it looks like crazy syntax, but it's a way of creating a pattern to match a part of the word. And once you've got that pattern matched, you can take out parts of the word or go from there. Regular expressions are very hard to master, and 95% of all developers I work with, every time they have to write a regular expression, they have to pull up this reference guide and remember what all of the syntax is for a regular expression. So at no point do we expect you to have all of this syntax memorized. We just want to expose you to the fact of, hey, if you need to match a part of a string, you can write this regular expression pattern to pull out pieces of the data that are in that string.
So it's like kind of like a key.
It's kind of like a key. It's like a pattern finder, right? You're writing some expression out, and then you're trying to find that pattern in the string. So this regular expression up here at the top is matching any phone number that starts with 555 and then has digits after it. So we could say, and another phone number is 555-432-1234, and it's going to match on that. But we could say, and 1234-456-7890, and it's not matching on this phone number because it doesn't start with 555.
Question. So is that kind of like how when you go to regular sites and you click something and then you can find like the way you do it, your example?
Yeah, so kind of. You can definitely search and replace using regular expression. So you could search the entire page and say, hey, find me all the places on this page that start with a certain word or start with a bullet point. There are some other ways of pulling apart pages when you're scraping them, when you're trying to get data out of them. Because all of that data is already formatted in HTML, we actually would use something closer to a CSS selector to pull the data out, because HTML is more structured than just looking at all the content on the page. However, it is definitely common for scrapers to use regular expressions. They just tend to only use them as a fallback. They use the HTML to find the data first, and then if that data isn't broken down into pieces, they could further use a regular expression to pull that data out. Great question, and a great example of when regular expressions are used. Any other questions?
So could we use the regular expression to say find everything that's not a letter?
We could. Having it not do something is a little trickier in regular expressions land. You basically can say find everything that is a letter, and anything that is not in that group, remove it. Which is definitely an approach you can take. You can solve this. And this is a good example of just because it is a more complicated way does not mean that it is a wrong way. So I actually have the solution that I took for getting our palindromes working. And the solution that I took uses both regular expressions and regular replaces. But you could solve this by having all of these be in the regular expression, or you could find all of the things that are letters and pull them out using the regular expression as well. So multiple different ways of solving this problem. No way that is more correct. There may be a way that is more efficient or easier to read. But just because it is a different way of doing it does not mean that it is wrong. Okay, any questions on any of that stuff before we move on from regular expressions? Okay, so what we are going to dive into tonight is building a calculator in the browser. So we are going to take a different approach tonight. I know the Movie Seeder app, we kind of piecemealed it together, right? We started out, hey, we need a header at the top. All right, we need a select. Now that we have the select, we got to get the data into the select. Okay, now that the select is working, we need to change the seats. Okay, how do we get the seats to show up? Okay, now what happens when we click on it, right? That is one way, and a very valid way to develop, right? Of thinking it from this of the top down, what needs to happen when we interact with this site. We're going to take a different approach tonight. Tonight, we're going to build out the entire calculator interface in HTML. We're going to get everything the way we want it, and then we're going to layer in our JavaScript and make all of our JavaScript make the calculator interactive. So when we click on the buttons, it does all of the right things. So I'm going to start with my VS Code. And I'm going to do a file open folder and go, well, try to get that on the right monitor. I'm going to go to my desktop. I'm going to go to my code. I'm going to go to my week 3. I'm going to create a new folder called day 3, and I'm going to hit open there.
You said week 3?
I'm sorry, week 8, day 3.
Oh, okay, thank you.
And I'm going to create a new file called index.html. Going to create another file called script.js. And I'm going to create one final file called style.css. I'm going to go back to my index.html, hit my exclamation point, enter. And then I'm going to link everything together. So in my head tag, I'm going to say link rel is equal to style sheet. And my href is equal to style.css. And then down at the bottom, let's do it inside the body. We're going to do a script tag, and the source is going to say script.js. And in my body, I'm going to put an h1 that says calculator. And then I'm going to go to my script.js. I'm going to console log my hello world. I'm going to save that. I'm going to go to my style.css. I'm going to find my h1 and make the color red. I'm going to go live and make sure I've got a red H1. And if I go into my console, I see my hello world showing up. So I'm good to go there. I've got everything linked. I'm going to start a live share and I'm going to share that in the live stream. Apparently, I'm not going to share that in the live stream. Try that again. Share that there. And I will also share it in the Zoom chat. And I'll give everyone a minute just to get all of their files set up. Again, we did our index.html. We created two other files, our script.js and our style.css. Then we added a link tag to our style.css in the head. And in our body tag, we added a script tag to our script.js. No, it's basic, but the poll lets me know how far along we are and making sure everyone's set up. The output of this should be in our browser. We've got a red calculator and we've got hello world showing up in our console, which we get to by right click, inspect, and then console. Karen asked a question, does anyone want me to do a file with comments tonight? I think what we're going to do is actually do that together as a class. So every time we complete a step, I'm going to solicit feedback from you guys of making sure that we're all following along and understanding it.
We should add need more time to the poll.
So the only problem is I don't think the poll doesn't let you change an answer. So if you answer need more time and then want to switch it and say, okay, now I'm caught up, it doesn't let you switch it. So that's why I don't have that option on there. And because I only have 3 responses in right now, I know you guys all need more time. So that's why I do the polls. It's not just a matter of what your answer is. It's also a matter of how many people have voted. And if anyone needs me to recover a step, again, we're looking for a red calculator and a hello world in the console. So if you don't have those, let me know and I can help you get there. Got 5 votes in, hoping to get a couple more. We are going to go a little bit slower than last night, so everyone's got a chance to code along with this one. So I don't want to discourage you if you felt like yesterday was too fast. Hopefully everyone's got a little bit more time here. But I've got 6 answers in on the poll. I think I've got 12 students in tonight, so I would love to get to 10. Nine answers in, just need 1 more, and we will keep going.
Oh, here it is.
All right, got to 10. Let's keep on going. So I'm going to take out my H1 color red. We only do that just to make sure our style sheet is linked up properly and everything's working, right? So I'm going to take that out. I am going to leave in my H1 calculator. It's nice to know that we're working with. And if you guys all picture a calculator in your head, right? An old school, we're not talking about a graphing calculator. What's the first thing that you think of at the top of the calculator?
A small rectangle for the screen besides the square of the body.
That is exactly what I think of too. So I'm going to say div ID equals screen. And in that screen, just to get started, I'm going to say 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now what's the next thing that you think of on a calculator?
Little screen that's got 3 lines in it. What's that?
The little solar thing? We'll come back to add that in. What's the kind of the next thing down from the screen?
Button.
Ed,
Buttons.
The number pad or the buttons, right? So we're going to say, hey, we're going to put a button in here, and it's going to say, and it's up to you guys. Do you want to do it? I think calculators normally have 7, 8, 9, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. You want to do it that way, or do you want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, like a phone pad?
Phone pad. Keep it
Okay.
simple.
So we're going to say 1, and I'm going to take that button, copy it, and say 2, and then take that whole button, copy it, and say 3. So I come over here, and I've got my screen shown up here, and I've got my buttons 1, 2, and 3. And because I want my 4, 5, 6 in the next row, I'm going to take this whole div, put in a new div there, and say 4, 5, and 6, and take my whole div again and say 7, 8, 9. And then, of course, at the bottom, we've got our div with a button of 0. Come over, I've got my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So let's start with the very basics. What should happen when I click on the number 2?
The color should change, like it should go in.
Thinking more about what should happen on the screen.
Oh, the 2 should pop up.
The 2 should pop up, exactly. So what we are going to do is we're going to say, hey, on click of this button, go call a function called numClicked and pass in the event of the number getting clicked. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to go to my script.js, and I'm going to try and click on the button 1, and it says uncaught reference numClicked is not defined. Well, of course it's not defined. We went into our JavaScript, or sorry, our HTML, and we said, hey, when this button is clicked on, go run this function called numberClicked. But we didn't tell it in our JavaScript what our numberClicked is going to look like. So I'm going to say const numClicked is equal to an event as a parameter, and I'm just going to console log out the event. I want to see if this code is running. So I come over here and I click on the 1, and I get this pointer event coming out. Okay, but if we click on the 1 and we're trying to get our screen to update, what do we need to know about the 1? About the button, I should say.
That it's the 1 button.
That it's the 1 button. So I'm going to go into the event, and I'm going to go get the target of the event, right? What thing was actually clicked on? And now that I've got the target, I can actually get the inner HTML from that target. So I come over here, I click on the number 1, and I see 1 showing up. So now that I've got the 1 here, I need to go get that 1 into the screen. So I'm going to say document, I'm actually going to say const screen is equal to document.getElement by ID. And the ID we're going to use is this ID screen. And when we've got our screen, we're going to say, hey, screen, your inner HTML is now going to be equal to the const number clicked. So I'm going to save that. And what I'm saying here is, hey, go get the inner HTML. That's the number that got clicked on. Then go to the document, get the element called screen, store that in here. Then take the screen, go into the inner HTML and make it equal to the number that got clicked on. So if I come back over here and I click on my 1 shows up. Great. Now if I click on 1 again, it should say 11. And it just says 1. So what we need to do is we need to say, hey, the screen is not going to equal just the number that got clicked on. It's going to equal whatever is in the screen plus the number that got clicked on. So now if we come over here and click on our 1, and remember to save our file, we get 1, 1, 1, 1. So I'm going to stop there and let's make sure you guys are caught up to that point. I'm actually going to leave my screen split here in hopes that you guys can see almost everything. Try that. So basically all that should be happening now is that in your Chrome, when you click on the number 1, it's just adding it to the screen up here at the top. Stephanie, you want to share your screen?
Hold on. When I hit the number 1, it's not clicking.
Okay, so you've got your num clicked, you've got your JavaScript all looking good. Let's go back to your index.html. And you've got your on click num clicked. Okay, so pop open your console. And it says document get element by ID is not defined. So go to where you do your document get element by ID. And you will find something's off about that.
ID.
Look at your camel casing. Document and get are 2 different words, but there might be missing, you might be missing something between them. Close, it's just not in the right spot. Should be document, and then you're telling the document get the element by the ID.
Oh,
There you go.
gotcha. All right, thank you.
Is it supposed to say undefined or just 1?
It's supposed to, if your screen starts with 1, 2, 3, and you click on the number 1, it should say 1, 2, 3, 1.
Oh.
My button, when I do all my buttons, they're all red, but my stuff is showing. Is that just prettier?
Share your screen.
Okay.
Oh, that's just your theme.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So that's normal.
Okay.
I think that's actually an extension that you have installed, like Rainbow something.
Oh, right. Yeah, okay. But you know, when something's red, it makes you think it's wrong. So
Yeah, I think that the color they're going for there is more pink than red. I don't actually develop with rainbow brackets or rainbow, I forget what the other one is. I don't actually like having those extensions on, but it's totally personal preference.
I remember doing it when we talked about it, and then like I said, up until now I haven't had any issues, but then I keep seeing red, so I'm like, is this right?
So if I request remote control, what you can do to experiment is over here is the extensions button, and you've got rainbow tags turned on.
Okay.
So if you click on that and just hit disable, and instead of install, what it's going to do is it says reload required. But if you reload it, this is basically using the theme that's built into VS Code, and that's going to be a lot closer to what mine looks like.
So then when I need my divs, is that gonna still, remember how the divs were like, some of them would be yellow, some would be
So
to
that's what this rainbow tags is doing. So you can't have your cake and eat it too. It's like if you want your div colors to line up, it's also going to do that on your buttons. So it's up to you. If you want to try it this way and see if you like it better this way, that's fine. If you want to come back in here, all you have to do is go to the extensions, click on rainbow tags and click on enable, and it will go back to the way it was.
Okay, thanks.
Just totally personal preference there. I can't tell you what's right or wrong. I can tell you that I don't like them on. But if you find the colors helpful, then run with it.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we've got 6 votes in. That's not as many as I would like. So I'm hoping to start hearing some questions about where you're stuck.
Yes. Matt. Oh,
I know I
sorry.
might be jumping ahead a little bit, but can I add the on click to like each other number? It
That's
should
next
only be
step.
popping up like just one, like one is the only button I can click to get it show up in the calculator, right?
Correct. That is the next step that we're going to do.
Okay.
Scotty,
Okay, Max, I'm not able to click on one and I have a error message. It's telling me to click my line 14. I'm gonna share my screen, but
go
I
for
don't.
it.
I feel like my line 14 looked like your line 14, so I don't.
Your line 14 in your HTML looks fine. Let's go to your script.js. And you've got your num clicked. Okay, let me see the error. Oh, you know what? You are missing a document dot on line 3.
Oh, all right. Well, that may have been my issue.
I
Thank
don't
you.
think that is your issue though. Just throw your document dot in there for me
Yeah.
and then go back to your index.html.
Okay.
And you've got a num clicked and go back to your script.js. Const num clicked. Okay, save.
Oh, hold on. It's a number click. Wait,
Well,
should it say number?
hold on. That's a little different. That is storing the number itself that got clicked on
Got
from
you.
the HTML. But this num clicked is what needs to match the num clicked in your index here. And it does. So that should be working. Make sure your script.js is saved.
Oh, sorry. I got a lot of stuff on top of my screen. 1 second. Yep.
Nope.
Oh, that's style CSS. Sorry. I can't click it. All right.
Okay. And then go back to wherever your code is running.
Nope. Where is it? I got a lot going on over here.
Is it this? I'm not an annotate anymore. Is it this one right here?
Yes, it is.
Refresh for me. And try it. What the heck? Oh, you know what? I think I know what it is. Go to your index.html. You are.
Oh.
So that's when we want to make sure our const log hello world is working, because if we didn't see our hello world in the console, we would know they aren't linked together.
Gotcha. Okay.
So click on your one and let's get the satisfaction of it working together. Oh, come on. Lowercase d in get element by ID. And is your screen, does that have a ID? Okay, so now you've got an uppercase on your screen in your JavaScript right here, but I would bet money in your index.html, it's going to be a
It's
lowercase
lower.
s.
It's the little things.
Yep. All right.
Okay.
give it a try. There you go.
Thank you.
Okay, so to Zach's point, we've got 9 answers in. Any chance for anyone else stuck anywhere? I am definitely making myself a black tea at break.
Same. I'm gonna make me coffee too. But I just wanted to say, like, to match what Zach was saying, just because I want to be ahead so I don't fall behind. Am I doing, well, let me let you do it. Let me let you do it, right? You know what I'm saying? I got it.
Any other questions? Okay, so what we can do is we can just let her rip here. I can take this whole on click and just paste it on each one of my buttons.
Are we going to be changing the event though, or it'll just apply the same?
No, and that's a great point. Because the event is coming from the target of what I clicked on, it's pulling out the inner HTML. So it's pulling out this button for us, that number for us, and storing it in number clicked.
Okay.
And then the number clicked is what gets added on to whatever is in the screen.
But how will we know if it's a different number? It's just going to be stored in there?
Because the target is different because the event is coming from clicking on the button itself.
Okay, got it.
So if we go in here and we click on 3, 5, and 9, you see it adds our 3, 5, and 9. Because again, this num clicked, even though it's the same function, the function takes an input parameter of event. Well, the event that happens on this button is going to have a different target than if we clicked on this button, right? The target is the actual button that we're clicking on. So what we do is we get the target and then we say, hey, now that you've got this whole button, I don't really care about the button. I care about the HTML inside the button. That's the number 2 or the number 5 or whatever we clicked on. So that's the number that we clicked on. Now go get the screen and add that to the screen. Okay, but now we've got a problem of we've got 1, 2, 3 showing up here every time that I load this page. When I think of a calculator doesn't start at 1, 2, 3, it starts at 0, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to make our screen start at 0 instead. But now when we come over here and I have 0 and I click on the number 5, I don't want it to say 0, 5. I want it to just say 5. But if I click on another number, I want it to add that number. So what can we do in our JavaScript to make it behave the way we want it to?
Since you mentioned that, are we going to add the plus minus?
It's coming next.
Okay.
Hold your horses, people. We'll get
Oh,
there.
It sounded like you asked the question of like.
I
what-
did ask a question. How do we make it in our JavaScript so that when we click on the first number here, it doesn't say 0, 5, it just says 5?
Maybe let. Is it let? Like a let thing?
So
No.
let would create a new variable for us. We don't need a new variable here. How can we make our code do something differently based off of a condition?
4?
We commenting it out.
If.
It's an if statement. We want to say if the number in the calculator screen is a 0, clear that out. Otherwise, keep adding numbers to it. So we're going to come over here and we're going to say, hey, if the screen inner HTML is equal to 0. If it's equal to 0, then replace whatever is in that screen with the number that got clicked on. Otherwise, else move the code that we already had working in there. So we're saying, hey, go get the inner HTML. And whenever we pull out data from our HTML, it's going to come back to us as a string. There's no parsing that gets done or data type conversion. Whenever we look at inner HTML, it's always coming back as a string. So our if statement is saying if the inner HTML of the screen is a 0, we want to clear out the 0, forget that the 0 was in there, just take the number clicked and throw it in our inner HTML. And anything between these two curly braces is going to run if what's between our parentheses is true. But if it's not equal to 0, then we're going to hit our else case, and we're going to take our screen inner HTML and make it equal to whatever is currently in our screen plus the number that got clicked on. So I'm going to come back over to our Chrome, and I'm going to refresh here, and I've got my 0 in there. And when I click on my first number, it doesn't work. That's because I am an idiot and forgot to save my JavaScript, because that really should have worked. Okay, I click on 5, and my 0 disappears, and I get just the number 5. And if I click on my 4 shows up. Okay. Making good progress here. Let's stop and make sure everyone's up to that point.
I have a question.
Yep.
How are we clearing the numbers we clicked on previously?
If you just refresh the page, it should clear everything out and take you to 0. And if when you refresh the page, if it doesn't take you to 0, come over to your HTML, and the div ID screen should have a 0 in it to get started.
Okay. It said, and now it says, okay, let me see something I did. Let me see.
So again, what we should have is if we refresh the page, it should have a 0 at the top. And if we click the number 1, it should make the 0 go away. And if we click the number or any other number, it should make it show up. And if you want to clear it out, you can just refresh the whole page and it will take you back to 0.
I have a random question.
Yep.
How come we put the else in the middle like that? Is it just because it's floating through?
Because we only want it to do this if this is not true.
Okay, or else. Thanks.
Oh,
Yep.
getting double numbers whenever I press. I'm not sure why.
Check your if and your else statement. Make sure that your if, and then you've got parentheses here and whatever condition you're checking for. You've got your opening curly brace, and then you've got the code that's going to run if that thing is true, and then a closing curly brace. And then you've got an else and the opening curly brace. And then that means this code is only going to run if this is not true. And if you still have a problem, let me know when we can share your screen.
Can you tell me real quick one more time what those 3 equal signs is?
Yeah, so this is saying if we're checking equality, we're saying, is this equal to this? So when we use 1 equal, that's now saying assignment, which is basically saying take whatever is on the right side of the equal and assign it or store it into this variable. But when we are, right, so that's the same thing up here. Hey, number click. 1 equal means take whatever's on the right side of the equal and shove it into the left side of the equal. But when we're not trying to take the right side and shove it into the left side, when we're trying to check to see if the 2 are equal to each other, we're going to use our triple equals. Okay. And so what we're saying here is take whatever's in the HTML and see if whatever's in there, which is a 0 to start, is equal to the 0 string. And if it is, we want to forget about whatever's in the screen and do all of this stuff in here. But if you go look at the inner HTML and it's got a 2 in it, well, 2 is not equal to 0. So take whatever's in the screen and add on whatever number we just clicked.
Okay. That was so the 3 equal signs is equal, but 1 equal sign is totally different. Okay.
The 3 equals is saying, hey, compare the left to the right to see if they're the same. The 1 equal is saying take whatever's in the right and store it, make it equal to what is in the left.
Okay, I got it.
I'm good. I don't know how comes the last part of my code got copied twice.
Okay, you need.
So it was like
Oh,
Yeah,
you're good
so
or you found it?
yeah, I'm good because I
Okay.
erased the code and like, it was doubled. I don't know how it did that.
Okay.
It's weird.
All right, so now we've got our calculator. Our calculator doesn't do us much good if we can't actually add and divide and do stuff, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm thinking about a calculator design. Normally all those buttons are over on the right side, right? So I'm just gonna add another button and I'm gonna say plus. I'm gonna add another button that says minus. I'm gonna add another button that says multiply, and I'm going to shove in my last div my divide button, and nope, sorry, shouldn't be a div, that should be a button. Oh, there we go. And one final one. Actually, I'll save that one. So if I come over here and look, I've got my plus, my minus, my multiply, and my divide now down at the bottom. Looks a little ugly. We can fix that up in a minute. So I come in here and I've got my 1, 2, 3 working and all my numbers. But when I click on plus, it doesn't do anything. What do I need to do and what should it do?
It should add one. I mean, sorry, when you click on it, it should.
Yep. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up our calculator a little differently. We're going to make it so when we click on any of these, it's going to show up that operator in the screen. And then it's not going to actually add all of that together until we hit the equal button. So what we're going to do is we want all of these to actually work just like this, where we're saying, hey, if the thing that gets clicked on is, when we click on the thing, we just want to add it to the screen because our equal button is going to be the only thing that actually says, okay, now go do that math. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, instead of num clicked, I'm realizing that num clicked is probably not a good name because we're not just going to run it when we click on a number. We're going to run it whenever a button gets clicked. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say button clicked. And then I'm going to say, instead of number clicked, I'm going to say, let's call this maybe button text is going to be more accurate. And then I'm going to take my button text and say, hey, that is now going to come in here. And over here, I need to replace all of my num clicked with a button clicked. So if you are in your index.html and hit Command F, it's going to bring up this thing that says num clicked. And we can replace all of our num clicked with all of our button clicked. And if we click this replace button here, it's going to go through and replace all of them for me. So I'm going to just take my on click button clicked and make sure those are on my plus, my minus, my multiply.
How did you replace them all?
If you hit Command F, it is going to pop up this little window for you. You're going to hit this little arrow over here and type in the word that you would like it to be replaced with. And then this button right here is going to be your replace all. It's going to replace all instances. Fun fact in a callback, look what happens when I hover over that little one up there. Use regular expression. It's almost like it's a concept that I lose students on all the time, but is a necessary one to expose you to. Okay, so what's happening now? If I save all of this, I come over here, I refresh, and I type in button clicked is not defined because I forgot to save my JavaScript. If I click on 2, 5, and I'm plus, my plus shows up, and a 5 and an 8, and that shows up. So I'm relaunching the poll, and we're seeing where everyone is at. So again, we not only renamed our on click here to button click to be more accurate, we also updated our function over here called button clicked. Then in our button text, instead of calling this num clicked, well, num clicked doesn't make sense anymore because it's not just numbers, it's any button. So we renamed this variable to button text and then use that down here instead of our num clicked. Shranjay, just to catch up to where we are at in class, I would recommend, I hate to say this, but copying and pasting the code as it is from the live share. The live share link is in the live stream channel. And if you can pop that open, I would just get your 3 files set up, your index.html, your style.css, and your script.js, and just copy and paste what we have in. So that way, as we're going through, you can kind of just follow along with that as your starting point. Go ahead, Christy.
I just need to know, I was doing something else, so I missed where you replaced everything.
Okay, yep. So over here in our index.html, instead of replacing every num clicked with a button clicked manually, I hit Command F, and that's what pulled up this search bar at the top. And if you type in whatever text you're looking for, you can hit this little arrow to the left of it, and that's what shows you what the other replace dropdown is going to be.
Okay.
So you're going to put num clicked up here. You're going to put button clicked down here. And then if, whoop, you're going to make sure your spelling is right. And then this is the replace all button. So this button is going to replace the first thing that it finds. This button is going to replace all of the instances that it finds.
I did it. I did it. Thank you.
And that find and replace tool, coupled with the regular expressions that you learned tonight, are how you do a lot of data validation and data cleanup. All right, we got 7 votes in. I'd love to get 2 or 3 more. If you've got questions, feel free to ask them.
I got a quick question.
Yep.
I'm not sure why my stuff has a little red squigglies under it, but I'm pretty sure I can figure it out, but I'm gonna share my screen anyways.
Go for it.
It's okay. Like for this one right here, button click event, and then it has a squiggly right here. Why?
Yep. So the squiggly is often because of something right before it. Compare your line right above it, 16 to 17, and see what's different. Yep. And then, oh, well, you're right. You just have to take out VS Code trying to be too helpful.
All right.
Oh, careful.
You know I suck. No. All right. Thank you, Matt.
No problem.
Okay.
8 people in. Would love to make it 9.
All right.
Corey,
I
you have a
got you.
question? Okay, suddenly got 2 more votes in, so I think we are good to go. So I'm going to share my screen again. We're going to go to desktop 1. All right. We've got everything working so far, right? We've got 28 plus 58 showing up. We got whatever. We got that one more thing that I'd really love to hammer home, and that's the equal button that brings all of this together. So I'm going to go back to my last div, and inside the div, I'm going to add a button on click equals. And this one I'm going to do as a different function, right? Because this is really different. It's not just adding numbers to the screen. It's actually going to execute our code. So what we're going to do is we're going to say equal clicked. And that can take the event as always. And that button is going to have an equal sign show up there. So I'm going to save. I'm going to come over. I'm going to make sure my equal sign shows up there. I do my 5 times 2. I hit enter, and it says equal clicked is not defined. Okay, well, that makes sense. I called equal clicked here, but I never told it in our JavaScript what it's supposed to do. So I'm going to come back over to our JavaScript, and I'm going to say const equal clicked is equal to the event that's coming in. And I'm just going to console log out equal clicked. Right. And the whole point there is that we could write out all of our code to make our equal working and realize that our equal clicked isn't linked here and think something is broken in all of our code. We want to make sure that we're testing constantly, right? So we want to make sure that this equal clicked is lining up with this equal clicked over here. And so if we come back over and do 1 times 8 and hit enter, it says equal clicked. Okay, I'm on the right track. Now I'm in here. I can take this out because my console log is running. And now I'm like, how do I make this work? I've got things in my screen and I want to kind of make it get the output of that. And then once I get the output, I need to put it back into the screen to show that it's the output. Okay, all of that sounds good, but there were 3 independent steps in there and we should write those out. So we're going to say, get the input from the screen, run the input to get the output, put the output back on the screen. Okay, well, now that we've pseudo-coded that out, just rough English there, we can make each 3 of those lines happen a lot easier. We're going to say const input is equal to document.get element by ID, go get the screen, and go get the inner HTML of whatever's on that screen. Okay, well, from there, it says run the input to get the output. So we're going to say const output, and we're going to say evaluate the input. And then put the output back on the screen. Well, that should be something as simple as document get element by ID, go get the screen, and say the inner HTML is equal to whatever the output is that we just found. So we save, we come over here, we type in 2 times 6 and hit enter, and we get 12. And we do 3 minus, fresh to clear it. We do a 9 times 3 and hit enter, and we get 27. And we should test all of our inputs. 3 minus 2 equals 1. Refresh to clear, 3 plus 2 equals 5. And then 9 divided by 3 equals 3. Okay, so we're going to stop there. We're going into break right after this. So if your calculator is working when you hit the enter button, you are all good to go. You can go on break. I will see you at 7:20. Otherwise, I'm sticking around for at least the next 4 minutes to help you guys get your calculators to that point. And I am relaunching the poll before you go on break, so I know where you guys are at.
Okay.
And again, if these are any concepts where you're like, I got it working, I'm caught up with Max, still have no idea why it's doing that, feel free to interrupt me and ask.
Mine is not clicking. It was clicking before.
Do you have an error in your console?
Let me see. Yes, button clicked. So 28 and 52. Okay, let me see.
I was trying to code along, but what does the EVAL stand for?
Evaluate, which
Oh, okay.
means take whatever input I've given you and run it as if it were code.
Okay, got it.
Oh. No. Okay, I need help. You can share your screen.
Go for it.
Damn it.
Okay, so what's that? So in my console, I don't have any.
No errors to start. And then when you click on a number,
Oh, 3
yep.
times 9 equals.
Okay, so let's go look for, let's start at the button in the HTML and work our way out from there. So our button has your equals and it has a button clicked. But when we go to your script.js, what should it be doing?
This
Yep. And what's that called?
equal clicked.
Yep. And what's it called in your index.html?
It is called button clicked.
Mm.
So this one should say equal. Right. Oh no.
Nope.
No,
Nope.
no.
Just delete.
This. Go back. 3 times 9 equals.
Okay, interesting. Equal clicked event. Everything looks good there to me. So let's go to script.js. And you've got your const equal kicked.
Uh-huh. Nab it. 3 times 9. Go get your tea. Oh gosh.
Got 7 votes in. I'm going to stick around just for 1 or 2 minutes into break.
Oh, I have issue.
Yep. Go. Oh, no. There we go. Go ahead and share your screen. And then Zach, I'm coming to you next.
Says line 35 on the index. And I'm trying to figure out.
I don't see anything wrong there. Let me take a look at your okay, so you've got your button clicked, and where do you have your equal clicked? Inside your button clicked. So what you're basically telling the computer is you can only find the equal clicked when it is inside of the button clicked.
Oh,
So you need to move line 9 to 16 outside of line 1 through 8. So your indentation is trying to tell you something here. It's saying, hey, everything on this line right here is going to be inside of the button clicked. So because your const clicked is indented another level, everything inside of here is inside of your button clicked up here. You don't want it to be. So what you want to do is take all of your const equal clicked and move it outside to down here. Okay, save and see if that works. Forgot to save. Boom. Good work.
thank you.
Stephanie,
Oh,
and then
that's
Sanjay.
so- I was out of it. All right, close off.
I'm gonna take you off on mute or ask you to.
There we go. Thank you. My equals button isn't working and I'm not sure why. I'm trying to look over here to see what I did different.
Um,
I'm in the area.
I'm not quite there yet, but I'm not staying in an inn tonight. I'm channeling my inner HTML. My other inner HTML.
I see it. Okay.
Sorry, you get dad debugging apparently of just bad puns.
No, that's perfect. All right. Thank you.
Shanjay, you're up. You're muted if you're talking to me.
Okay, I'm just I got the code, but I'm just trying to make sure my button is. I'm gonna try it again real quick before I. But my equal button wasn't working. Hold on 1 second. All right, I'm gonna share my screen next. Sorry.
That's fine.
Okay. Can you see?
I can. So go to your index.html. I don't see anything horribly wrong here.
Except for my index. Sorry. I'm gonna fix it.
And then scroll down here, and
I think I missed something.
Keep going, keep going. Everything looks okay so far. Okay, your equal button, you don't want it to do the button clicked. You want it to do the equal clicked.
So should
Yep.
I just change it? Okay.
And save that and see what you got.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
No problem. Last chance for questions before I run. And keep running. Just kidding. Okay, I'll see you guys at 7:20. So we've got our calculator going on here. We've got numbers adding. We're feeling like we're making pretty good progress. And I think it's important to take a step back here and say we've got like 20 lines of JavaScript, and we've got what, 38 lines of HTML, and we just made pretty functional calculator. Pretty ugly calculator, but a pretty functional calculator, right? Well, we're going to fix the ugly in a second, but one of the functional things is if I type in a number, I'd like to be able to clear it, right? I would like to be able to say, hey, I don't want that number anymore. And yeah, you can refresh the page, but wouldn't it be nice if we had a clear button? So that's the last thing I'm going to add. I'm going to go on to my buttons, and I'm going to say button on click, and I'm going to say clear button, clear clicked. And that's going to take the event, and it's going to have a C in it. And then I can take my clear clicked and come over to my JavaScript and say const clear clicked is going to be a new function. And all we're going to do is we're going to take the document, get element by ID. We're going to grab the screen, and we are going to set the inner HTML of that screen back equal to 0. Should probably do that in quotes, although I don't think it would matter at that point. So again, we added our button. We did an on click. We called it clear clicked. We put a C inside that button. Now we came over to our JavaScript. We added our clear clicked here. We made it a new function, and all we said is go into the HTML, get the screen, make the inner HTML equal to 0. So I save all of that. I save both of my files. I come back over here. I do my 3 + 6, and I hit the clear button, and it brings me back to 0. Okay, well, all of that's great, but what happens if I do like a 3 + equals? Ooh, now I get this unexpected end of input script 15. What the problem is it's trying to say 3 + what, right? And so that's what I want to focus on, is it is possible that the user is going to hit enter before the input is ready. So what we can do is we can go up to our equal clicked, and what we can do is we can say, hey, try to do all of the code in this block. But if it doesn't work, catch an error and say, hey, the screen inner HTML is not going to equal the output anymore. It's going to equal the word error. So I come back here, I say 3 +, and I hit equal, and I get error showing up. But if I click on another number, now I've got error 3. Okay, well, what if instead of just checking to see if the screen inner HTML is equal to 0, we also make it to say, or the screen inner HTML is equal to the word error. So now when we say 3 + equals, we get our error. And when we type a new number in, it clears out the error and gives us the number. Stopping there, we added or here, the double bars, which are right underneath your delete or backspace button. That is your or operator. So we have 2 ampersands, that's our and. 2 bars means or. We added screen inner HTML equals error. And then we took almost our entire equal clicked and put it in a try block. And we're saying a block of code, anything inside our curly braces. Then we have our catch down at the bottom. We tell it what error we're trying to catch. And then we say document get element by ID, the screen, and add in the word error to it. Pausing there, starting a poll, diving in. Guess I should end the existing one before I start a new one, huh? Oh, and the output here should now be 1, that we've got a clear button that sets everything back to 0. 2, that if we type in something invalid and hit equals, it says the word error. And then 3, if we click another button while the error is showing, it resets the calculator to that screen. That's our end goal here. I just learned the greatest Zoom command ever, and I need to share it with you all. When you're sharing your screen, if you hit Control, Option, Command, and H, it gets rid of that super annoying bar that always has to be at the top or bottom of your screen. It's like a game changer for me. Control, Option, Command, and H.
Yeah, it's so annoying, especially when you're using one monitor.
I never knew that that was a command. I think that's a newer one that they added because I haven't seen that before.
What is that a command in?
So like, you know, when you're sharing your screen and you get the floating bar that's always in your way with the mute button and the stop share button and all of that
Oh, yes,
stuff.
yes.
If you hit Control, Command, Option, H, it hides that bar in Zoom.
Oh, good to know.
So, I mean, it doesn't impact you guys much, but because, you aren't screen sharing a ton, or when you are and you're trying to, show me where you're stuck, you can get rid of that bar completely with that keyboard shortcut. We've got 7 votes in, hoping to get a couple more. If you were stuck and need help, let me know.
Random question, you probably already said this. How can we make the error all capitalized?
I just typed the word error in all caps.
No, but there isn't going to be like a reason. I go, no.
Oh no, if you would like this to say you messed up, as long as this matches with whatever's going on up here, you can type in 3+ and equal and get you messed up instead.
Oh, okay, that's good to know. Thanks.
Normally put a curse word in there, but these things are recorded.
Hey Max, is there a reason why I would be getting like the C versus it actually clearing?
Because your function on the on click is not called clear clicked, it's called button clicked.
Okay.
That's a guess. I can't say that confidently.
How much I can see before I share, because it might be. No, it say clear click.
And both your files are saved?
Both of my files are saved. I'm gonna share my screen now.
Go
Well, yeah. Okay.
Clear clicked. Yep, go back to that. You little liar.
Oh, wait. I thought it. Oh, I was looking at yours. That's the issue. I was looking at yours and thought it was. Okay, I'm gonna fix it. Thank you.
No problem. I'm guessing that's going to get us over the 10 line. So we've got a couple options here. We've got a whole hour of class left. So what I was initially planning on doing was spending some time in our CSS, cleaning this up. And the main reason we want to do that is all of these projects, while they seem like little snippets of code, they are showing your progress throughout the whole boot camp, right? And these are all things that you want your employer to see, because it's so easy to go out and get a job and the employer comes to you and says, okay, but what have you built? And you go, well, nothing, I'm an entry-level developer. Well, that's a lie, right? What you have built is all of these projects throughout the course of the program. So regardless of where we go for the rest of the evening, the goal is here that you're going back to the movie theater seat app. T is not kicked in yet, and going back in and adding in some styling, maybe figuring out what your next steps are, cleaning up your code and adding in some comments, and then going back to your portfolio, creating a new page for the movie theater seat app and adding in all of that information, because that's a major win, right? That is something that you can then go to an employer and they say, well, why should we hire you? You can say, well, look, I know how to build this stuff, right? And that portfolio is really important. The same goes for this calculator. You should be going back in here and saying, okay, what are the next steps? I need to clean up some of the styling, right? I want to make the buttons all the same width. I may want to make the screen look more like a screen. There's all different things that you can go here in this calculator and make it do next. That's one thing. The second thing is we've got a lot of free code camp that is outstanding and a lot of projects that we have done at this point. So we've got a whole nother week of JavaScript coming up and APIs next before we hit another project week. So option 2 for this class is rolling forward with just opening it up to like a general office hour session. And then we can kind of tag on to that the notion of your capstone. If you guys have questions about your capstone, if you're wondering what next steps are, if you're curious to hear about what your fellow students are at or where they're stuck or where they need help, we can also open it up to that. So I am going to, give me 1 second, I am going to create a poll And you guys can choose whether you would like to focus on the calculator styling, or if you would like to open questions for capstone and capstone homework and general projects. I'm going to save this and I am going to launch the poll so you guys can decide where you would like to go next.
I did have a quick question which I feel like I already know the answer to, but the styling would just be in style CSS, or is there styling we could do in JavaScript, or is this just those CSS or style CSS?
Yes, it is largely going to be in style.css. However, there is styling that you can apply using JavaScript, and I can do that in a quick example so you guys can see that.
I heard if everybody else is okay with that.
Yeah, it's just a 2-minute demo. So what we can do is, let me think about, let's say we would like to say, hey, if the button that was just last clicked, so if we say, if the button text is equal to the plus sign, what we would like to do is go get the event.target, and this one I have to look up. So we're going to say JS add class to element. And first thing, W3 schools says my function, my div, add the CSS to whatever you want. And then in the JavaScript, get the element by the ID and then go to the class list and add whatever class you would like to add. Right? Not doing that just to show you the search there. JavaScript expert here who's been programming in JavaScript for 15 years. I had to just go look that up because I really did not know how to do it other than knowing that it's possible to do it. So I come back over here and I say element, which is the event target, go to the class list and add something that says last clicked. Otherwise, go to the event target and, well, let's just do that to start. So we add last clicked. So we are going to go to our save and go to our CSS. And in our CSS, we're going to add a class called last clicked that turns the background to a beautiful pink color. Doesn't look very pinkish to me, but let's find out. So I go to my code and I click on 3 and nothing happens because we put that in an if statement. We're saying, hey, we only want to apply that if the button we're clicking on is the plus button. So I hit the plus button and it turns it pink for me. But if I click on another button, now I don't want it to be pink. So let's change this up on the fly. Let's say, hey, go ahead and add last clicked to any button that I click on. So I'm going to click on 3 and I'm going to hit equal. Oh, it doesn't work on the 3, on the equal. But if I hit 3 and I hit plus, now it's added that one. And if I say 6, it's added it to that one. Okay, but I only want it on the last one that is clicked. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to come out here. And if I put another variable in here, this variable is going to disappear the next time the button is clicked because it's only accessible within that scope. So once we hit this last curly brace, that all the variables in here are going to disappear until the next time this code gets run. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to come outside of the function and say, hey, let the last thing clicked exist out here. And whenever we add our class last clicked, say the last thing clicked is going to be equal to the event target. And then we come up to the top here and we say, if there was a last thing clicked. If that thing exists at all, go get the last thing clicked and remove, go to the class list and remove last clicked. So our first button gets clicked. It goes in and goes button clicked and goes if the last thing clicked. Well, there's no last thing that got clicked. It's the first button. So we ignore this code. We continue chugging along. We get our inner HTML. We do all the screen stuff. We're good to go. Then we add the last clicked class onto the button. That turns it pink. Then it says, hey, whatever thing we just turned pink, store it in the last thing clicked, which gets saved out here. Now, when we click on the next button, it says, hey, was there a thing that was last clicked? Oh, there sure is. I remember what that one was. So go in and remove that last clicked. Go do whatever you want to do on the screen. And now whatever button that just got clicked on, make that turn pink. And then store it so the next time we click on a button. So I come over here, I hit 3, I hit plus. It's now changed it for me. And I hit 5. And then we don't have it working on the equal yet, right? So if we hit equal, it's going to keep that 5 button clear. So little work to do there. You guys are the absolute worst. Has everyone voted?
I did.
I deleted mine by mistake.
You guys.
I hope there's more than just me that didn't vote because I don't want to be the tiebreaker.
Okay.
I voted. I voted. If everyone else voted, I'm flexible. So,
okay, so let's do this. Let's spend the next 20 minutes getting the styling to where we want the styling to be, and then we'll save the last 30 minutes for an open Q&A session. Does that work for everyone?
Thank you, Max.
all right.
I text Karen during the break, or I slacked her during the break, and I said, so we've got an hour of class left, and I've got about 15 minutes of content to still cover. So let's focus a little bit on our styling, and we'll go from there. So
Really quick,
yep.
are you going to keep the last click stuff, or should I just get rid of that?
Yeah, I can leave that code in there. That's fine.
Thank you.
Okay, so and what I'll do is I'll share all of this code kind of as is in the live stream channel. So if you would like to see it before we do all the styling, you've got like a check-in point for it. Okay, so all of that is in Slack. So first things first, I would like my calculator to feel like a calculator. And to me, that means that everything is kind of in its own little box and that we can see the screen and the buttons all line up. So I'm going to go to my, I'm going to take out my script.js and make my style.css over on the right, because that's where I'm going to be working on most of the code, right? So I need to put all of my stuff, the screen, all the buttons, all of that into a div. So I'm going to say div, and I'm going to say ID equals container. And then I'm going to take my final closing div here, move it all the way to the bottom, and put everything inside of it. Then in my CSS, I'm going to say, hey, my container should have a border of 3px solid black. That did not do what I wanted it to do because the div is an inline element. This is why we should prep for class next before we show students what we're doing. Okay, so let me just pull this out a little bit, and I'm going to play around with my CSS in the browser to get it to do what I want, right? Because the problem is these are all divs in here. And if I actually, let's play around with the code. If I comment out all of these divs, except the last one, and just put a span tag in here that says text, I come over here and it's still pushing it all the way out. So the reason I commented all of those divs out was because I wanted to know, hey, is the div going to full width on its own, or are the divs inside of it pushing it to be bigger? So when I put the span in there, I know the span isn't going to be pushing our div out because it's just that text element. So now I know, hey, this div is automatically going to 100% width, and I don't want it to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove my span. I'm going to put my code back in, and then I'm going to say, hey, go target the container, target any div inside the container, and make them display as an inline element. Then go get the container and make that display as an inline element as well, which I can do right up here. I'm going to save that. I come back over. And that did not do what I wanted, but we've got our width fixed. So we do one problem at a time. So I'm going to try and say, make these inline block. And that's not going to work either. Okay, let's see what happens when I take these out. Okay, we're going to come back to that whole idea. I'm going to comment out the border on my container, and we're going to get our buttons to be equal widths to start, and then we'll go from there. So I want to say, hey, no matter what button you are, any button on the page, make the width 30 pixels. I come over here. At least now my buttons are lining up. Let's look my screen. Oh, I've got a good idea. Hey, all of our buttons are a set size, right? We know that because they're 4 across, they're never going to be more than 4 buttons. Well, we also just set their width to 30. So if we take 4 times 30, we get 120 pixels, right? So if I take my container, add it back in and say, hey, the whole container is only going to be 120 pixels wide. And then we add a little padding for breathing room. Now we've got our border that's around the same size. Any questions so far? Don't expect you guys to keep up with this, kind of just showing you my CSS process as I go.
You put 150 on purpose, or did you mean 120?
I initially did 120, but I believe these buttons have a little bit of padding or margin on them. So I did 150 to give me a little room to say, hey, all the buttons should have some margin around them of, let's say, 10 pixels to start. And now the width isn't big enough, right, for it. So I'm going to say 200, and now 200, and now it's just a game of playing with it to get the width right. So if I go into the container and get my width and just start going up, that's getting them all to fit. But I'm looking at that and I'm thinking maybe that's a little bit too much space between the buttons, right? So I'm just going to keep playing with it. I'm going to go in and I'm going to say, let's say the margin on the left is only going to be 3 pixels. The margin on the right is going to be 3 pixels. And then the margin on the bottom of them is going to be, let's say, 10 pixels. Okay, starting to feel maybe more like a calculator. Christy, question.
Can I show you what I did?
Go for it.
I went while we were voting. I went to the styling thing for style the button, and so this is what I came up with. Right here.
That looks good.
So I don't know if that, because it made it, I don't like the color and I don't like necessarily like all of it, but it gave me a style for the buttons and it was all even when I got it. So
yeah, everyone's calculator is going to be a little different. And that's okay. If I think Free Code Camp actually has a calculator project and they have some examples of what other people have made out of their calculators, you should ask Latonia tomorrow about her calculator and see if she can pull it up for you. because she did a lot of styling to get like the screen to look right and all of that kind of stuff.
Okay. Okay. All right. I can't figure out how. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so let's see what we can do to clean some of this up. Let's target our, I'm not sharing my screen. Okay, let's target our screen. And let's say this green is going to be a background color of green. And our color of the text is going to be white. We could even say our font family is going to be Courier New. And I'm going to save that, come over here. Now I've got my 0 showing up. And if I type in 5 minus 6 and hit enter, that's adding a little bit of cool styling there. So let's get our buttons really to feel right. So I'm going to say, hey, the button should have no background color. And that is going to fight me. Try a background of none. Okay, that made it feel a little bit more like a button to me. Let's make the padding on the buttons bigger. So let's say 5 pixels. Now it's starting to feel more like buttons. And then let's add some space underneath the screen. So the margin on the bottom of the screen is going to be, let's say, 15 pixels. Okay. And now we should say, hey, the screen itself should have some padding on it as well. So we're going to say, let's add padding of 10 pixels. Okay, it's on the right track. Now let's pull in our width to make sure everything is lining up properly. So I'm going to say our width, and maybe I'll do that in the browser, right? Because I don't really know what width is the right one. Of course, I could do the math and figure it out, or I could just go to the container, click in my width, and if I hit shift down, it's going to bump the width down by 10 pixels every time. So I get 160, which would make more sense to your point, Larry, because 4 times that would add up to 160, not 3 times like I initially did. So if I put this down to 160, now all of a sudden calculator is feeling maybe a little bit more like a calculator. When I think about calculators, the numbers up here tend to be on the right? So if I go to my screen and I say my text align is going to be on the right side. Now my 0 shows up there. And if I do my 3 and my 5, things are showing up there. I could even get fancy and say on my container, add a box shadow of 3px solid gray. Maybe not gray. Let's add a color. Let's say salmon. Save. Oh, it's just not solid. Gotta look it up.
So Max, is you clearing your equal button work when as far as for the last button click thing?
It does not. We will fix that next.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so there's a little shadow on it. I definitely don't like the salmon, but let's try it in a light blue. Let's see what that looks like. Well, let's do a light green.
Are you gonna do a border on the green?
Yeah, we can make the whole thing green. There you go. It's a look.
Oh, I meant like for the screen.
So I think I like the border of the whole calculator matching the screen itself, but totally personal preference there. So Larry asked the question of how do we make it so that when we hit the equal button, that also starts to work. So what we can do is we're going to go back to our JavaScript, and what we need to do is say the last thing clicked needs to be updated. And we got to do this code. So I'm actually going to do a refactoring of this, but let me have Christy ask questions before we dive into that. Any other styling questions other than the last button clicked?
So Okay, so I noticed in index HTML, we did the div ID screen for the 0. So is that just the 0 or is it the screen, meaning the whole screen?
It's meaning the whole screen and anything inside of it.
So that's inclusive of like all the numbers, the plus, minus, everything. Okay. Okay. That was
Yes,
my-
because those plus minus, all of that is going inside the screen itself. The div inner HTML, the CSS is going to apply to it, which is why the 3 and the 6 look like the numbers that they are.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So what I want to do is I'm going to refactor this because we've run into the problem where, hey, button clicked is doing all of the last click things, but what happens when equal is clicked or clear is clicked? So what we're going to do is we're going to say const any button clicked, and we're going to get the event from that. And then I am going to say, hey, if the last thing is clicked, if the last thing clicked exists, go ahead and remove it. And I'm also going to say, take whatever happened on the event and add last click to it, and then store the last thing that's clicked. So for all of that, now we need to go through because we basically just broke it. We come over here and we say 3 and I don't get my little button click. And I, click on something else and it's working, but it's not adding that color to the last button that got clicked. So what we did is we moved it out into its own function, but we didn't call that function anywhere. We didn't say, hey, run this any button clicked. So all we're going to do is we're going to pepper that in to the 3 functions that we already have. And so now we come in here, we refresh, we click on the 3, and it says, cannot read properties undefined of target. Because we had a parameter here, right? The any button click needs to know what event did it happen on. It needs to know what button actually got clicked. So when we call our any button clicked, we need to take the event that happened on the button click and pass it through to the event up here. So we add in the event up here and the event here and the event in here. And now it works for any button that we click on. So Zach, in answer to your question, all JavaScript is case sensitive, all CSS is case sensitive, and anything you're linking to in the HTML between the JavaScript and your HTML through the DOM, all of that is case sensitive as well.
Okay, thank you.
Font family, I don't actually know if that is case sensitive or not. Well, there's one way to find out. We can tell that like the plus
It
is
is.
in.
I just
Okay.
looked it up. Stack
Perfect.
Overflow says that for at least for CSS, it has to be case sensitive or it won't work correctly.
Okay.
And that's like that includes like if you're adding a link in to add like unique fonts and if you're just using like default fonts, right?
Correct. Yeah. So there are only a list of like 13-ish web safe fonts. So if you look at my style.css, you see I have Courier new, but because I have multiple listed, what CSS is going to do is it's going to try and find Courier new on my computer. If it has it, it will use it. If it's not on my computer, it will try Courier. And if it doesn't have Courier, it's going to fall back to monospace because absolutely all browsers have to have support for 3 fonts monospaced serif and sans serif, which is like the 3 overall kinds of fonts. So if you just do a search for web safe fonts list, it will show you W3 of all of the ones that like you can absolutely know are going to be installed on all browsers. But if for whatever reason they weren't, you would fall back to the monospace here.
Okay,
And if you
thank
wanted to use something other than the list that is in here, you would go to Google Fonts and make sure to include it from there.
Thanks.
So one more thing I want to touch on before we open it up to questions. If I loaded this calculator and I clicked on a number, I go, oh, this is cool. Now let me go type the number 5 on my keyboard. Well, nothing happened. I want my 5 to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little JavaScript there, and I'm going to say, hey, document, go add an event listener. And the event that we're listening for is a key down. Whenever a key gets pushed down, I want to know it. And what I would like to do is run some code that gets that event and console logs out the event dot code. I want to know the code that got logged out. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to click on the number 5 and I get digit 5. And if I press on 1, I get digit 1. If I press on 0, I get digit 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, we need to do this button clicked thing, but we've got some different things going on here because we aren't pulling the button text from the inner HTML. We're going to pull it from whatever this key code is. So what we're going to say is let num pressed, and then we're going to say if the event.code is equal to digit 1, the num pressed is going to be 1. Else if the event.code is equal to digit 2, the num pressed is going to be equal to 2. So we would continue down that whole path, and then we would say, largely around the same thing of this button clicked, we're going to say, hey, get the screen. And then in the screen, add to whatever's in the screen, whatever the inner HTML is, plus the number that we just got pressed. So now when I come over here, I can type in 358 by clicking on it. And then if I hit the number 1, it says assignment to a constant variable, because this should say equal screen inner HTML is going to equal the inner HTML press the number pressed. So 3.5, and then I press the number 1, and it adds the 1 for us. So this is a good example of, hey, we did a bunch of events over here with the on click, right? But we can listen to events other than events in our HTML. We can actually add event listeners directly in our JavaScript. And in this case, we're not adding an event listener to a specific element. We're just listening to the event anywhere on the document. And the event that we are listening for is a key down. And the event that happens has more information in it. One of the pieces of information it has in it is this event code. And the event code is telling us what digit actually got pressed on the keyboard. So because it's a digit 1, that's a string. We only care about the number in it. So what we do is we say, hey, if it's digit 1, that means the number that got pressed is the number 1. So go store that in num pressed, and then get the screen and add that number to the screen. Make sense for everyone? Nicole, where did it start to get blurry, or where did you have a question?
Oh no, I was just like, yeah, it makes sense. It'll be whether I remember what it means later.
Yep. And the most important part here is that you can break this down, right? So saying like, well, why do we need this if statement? Well, we need the if statement because digit 1 is coming in, but we don't want digit 1 to get added to the screen. We just want 1 added to the screen. So that's why we're going to do that if statement, right? And so just breaking this down and logging, adding comments to all of this code at the end of class is also a really good way to make sure, 1, not only will you have notes for the next time you look at this code, but 2, making sure you understand it, right? So adding comments like set up place to store the actual number getting pressed, check the event code to see what number was pressed, store the number instead of the string with digit, in it, get the screen from the HTML, add the number pressed to the existing HTML in the screen. So going through and adding in comments at that level, super helpful, not only for you, but also for an employer to go through and review that. Okay, that is all I've got. I will open up the floor for any questions of what we just covered, where you're at on your capstone, free code camp spots that you got stuck at, any homework assignments that you wanted to burn in another circle of hell, anything or anything.
No, but can you start by putting this into the live stream? Just so I
Yeah,
can
I'm
check.
going to update the ones that are already in there just so we don't have like a whole bunch of them, but that is one, that is two, and then style is the last one. Okay, that is all in there. Christy, go ahead.
Okay, I have 2 questions. First question, so I'm noticing that in your script.js, you change a lot of it changed, like where we had the inner HTML, you change, it's like changed to like last thing, click, last click. That's for that styling.
Correct.
Okay, so, okay.
Well,
That's
it's
not-
kind of for the styling. It's so that when you click on a button in the interface, you can see what the last button that was clicked was.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so if we were okay with it the way it was, we can leave it the way that it was? Okay.
Correct.
All right, so what I was playing around with the grid, and on my own. And then I had a meeting with Jason and I was telling him that I didn't think that I liked the bike idea anymore.
Okay.
And then he and I were talking, and then, well, the reason why I said I didn't like the bike idea was because I felt like it wasn't attractive, like it wouldn't be appealing. But then I was thinking, if I took pictures, let's say that I took 25 pictures and then I created a photo grid. So I would have all these pictures, and then you could click on the picture, and then the location, the picture would be a description of that particular route. The route was, and it would pull in the information. So the picture would be a button and you click on it, but it would be a grid when you came into it.
Mm-hmm.
That it would look, it would make someone want to look at it, because I just like, who cares about your bike routes? You know what I mean? But Like there's these birds that I see all the time. If I could capture a picture of that bird, then I can say on this route, you can see this bird.
Yep.
So basically what I want to do is create a photo grid and then use the photo grid as the first screen and then you click into it. So I wouldn't necessarily need a multiple pages, right? Because I would have the photo grid and there would be, once you click into it, it would be the pages behind it.
Yes. So you would need multiple pages because whatever you're clicking on, that photo is going to take you to another page. And the best example that we have of that is the portfolio, right? Where you're on your portfolio, you click on a project and then you go to the page behind it to see the project info. So you still would have multiple pages, but the biggest piece of advice I can give you there is just start building it. After you've got your wireframes done, you're going to build all of that out and you're going to be like, my God, I hate the grid idea. Let's abort this and do something else. Or you're going to say, I love this grid idea, but turns out I don't want a 5x5 grid. I want a, 3x3 grid, and then I want to make it scroll. Or there's going to be a lot of times that you want to go back in and you may say, all right, now that I think about it, I actually like this photo idea more. Maybe I want to do this with Syracuse locations instead of doing this about bike routes, right? Or there's a lot of different things that your project will evolve into, and that's okay. But if you're constantly afraid of your project changing, you're never going to get started on it, right? So I would say dive in, start wireframing everything out, and start getting into your code, start getting your HTML started. It's okay to not get into your JavaScript yet, because we're going to be doing projects next week where you can start to see how the JavaScript is going to interlay into your project, and that's okay. But get started on your HTML.
So, my friends consider me a foodie because I eat at all kinds of places. Now that you said that, I could do pictures of places that I love to eat, and then I could click on, and then you could see the picture, you could click on it, and it could be somewhere I love to eat. I think that information would be a whole lot easier to pull in than the bike routes.
Whatever you decide to do is okay, but just lock into an idea and run with it.
Well, the photo, I'm locked into the photo grid idea. I'm definitely locked into that because I was playing around on my own and I saw some things. And so I'm definitely locked in on the photo grid, but then, yeah, that's different. Okay. So whatever it is, it'll be the photo grid and then I'll figure out what the pictures will be of and what's going to go behind it. Okay.
Sure.
I got a question.
Yep.
Can I show my code? I think I got like a double part or something. Yeah, so I'm trying to like fill this in right here, but I feel like I already have this. Do we have this twice? I'm not sure.
No. So I think, yeah, your 12 through 16 is duplicated. You don't want that. What you want to do is, what we did in class was we move things into that any button clicked from the button clicked event.
Okay.
So your any button clicked is all good. Your button text and your screen is good. So what you can do is take out 21 through 23. Oh, no. Leave that as is. That should say button clicked.
Okay.
And then you're going to take out 21 through 23. And you're going to add at the top between 12 and 13, you're going to call your any button clicked and pass through the event. So between 12 and 13, nope. Leave that as is. Between 12 and 13, add a new line. And say any button clicked parenthesis event. And what that's doing is it's calling the any button event that we have added up above.
Okay, I guess I'll figure it out.
That should make it so that when you click on a button, you get the class added to it. You get the color behind the button.
Okay, thank you.
Where are the rest of you guys at with your capstones? Are you feeling like you've locked into an idea? Are you feeling like you've got the wireframe started? Are you just feeling lost?
For me, I ended up, I just went ahead and made it, like pushed it, like made my subdomain and pushed it to GitHub. And then like, I haven't started on the HTML yet, but that's where I felt like it would be best so I can see, and then like get familiar with pushing it up to the, live area.
Yep. And that is a great starting step. So get your project started, get your HTML going. And this is what one-on-ones are really for, right? So I understand that there's a lot of intimidation of like presenting your capstone and where you're at with the students. And important to recognize there that the capstone is a personal journey, right? There is no comparison of capstones at the end. You do not get a grade on your capstone. The capstone is required for graduation, right? And getting the certificate at the end, but there's no A, B, C, D fail grade going on there, right? So the one-on-ones are really, if you've got questions about class, continue scheduling them, but we're going to start enforcing those one-on-ones a little bit more, even if it's just a 15-minute check-in to check in on how your progress is going on the capstone, right? And where we're really hoping you're at now is you've got your idea outlined, you've got some wireframes done, whether it's diagrams.net or done on a whiteboard or done on paper or done in PowerPoint or wherever you have your wireframes. Getting those wireframes done is going to lower the barrier to entry so that when you start building out your HTML pages, you know exactly what is going to go on those HTML pages. So the goal here is that when we go into the next project week in 3 weeks, you have most of your HTML built out so that we can start layering in interactivity using your JavaScript. However, it's very easy to put all of that out and say, oh, I'm going to get to my HTML eventually. I've got another 3 weeks before the project week. And before you know it, you don't have your wireframes done, so you don't have your HTML done, and now you feel behind on your capstone, right? So we want to eliminate that feeling by getting those one-on-ones scheduled with me, or honestly, if you've connected with a TA and like that capstone progress meeting to be with one of the TAs, that's also completely fine. So I'm going to kick around for 15 minutes. If you've got questions about anything that's been covered so far, homework, free code camp, progress on your capstone, what we covered tonight, anything and anything whatsoever, feel free to unmute or send me a message in chat or shoot Karen a message and she can go in a breakout. What's going on, Wayne?
So I've been trying to work on this arrow. 4 and 5, any button.
Okay, so
And
last thing clicked is not defined. So go to your code and look at 4. And it's saying last thing clicked. Class list remove. Okay, so it is saying it does not know what last thing clicked is. Where did you define last thing clicked? Where did you tell it, hey, let last thing clicked?
And the button. Well, okay. Well, here.
Nope, that's the event. Where did you tell it, hey, we're going to define what last thing clicked is? How do you declare a new variable or define a new variable? What are the keywords that you use?
You're so dirty yourself.
Const
And
last.
okay, so where did you say let last thing clicked? Right there. Yep.
Yeah.
So you're saying, hey, if last thing clicked, and it's saying, I don't know what last thing clicked is. Last thing clicked is not defined. So we go to where we defined it and we say, what is different between this and this?
You kidding me?
Now we need to be consistent. This matches and this matches and this matches, but this does not match exactly. And so you should be good to go there.
Case sensitive. I hate that.
You get better at it. That's the good news.
Oh, there's another arrow.
I'm going to let you work through it. So the important thing here is that the errors, while they're incredibly frustrating, they're trying to tell you not only where the error is, but what the error is, right? So when you're getting a not defined, you've got to look and you got to say, well, I'm defined it right here. It's right up here. Here's the let. And then that's when you realize it's case sensitive, right? Stephanie, go ahead with your question.
Hold on. When I'm over here, I don't know what I did to make this so that they all stay blue now.
Okay. You've got your any button clicked. Let's scroll up. Last thing clicked, event target, class list. I don't know what you did either. Oh, I know what you did. You're adding the class last clicked here, but when you go to remove the last one, you called it last button clicked, not just last clicked.
Oh, okay, so.
Oh, sorry, I cleared mine. My bad.
Let's see.
So it was trying to remove a class called last button clicked, and that didn't exist.
Oh, gotcha. All right, thank you.
No problem. All right, I'm fine to call it early if you guys are, but I will stick around for the next 10 minutes and see if there are any other questions.
I got one last question.
Yep.
So my calculator just still doesn't look like yours. Hold on, I'm going to share my screen once I find the Zoom.
So I would say your calculator shouldn't look like mine. Your calculator should be a unique journey of expressing your style.
Yes, I understand that, but I want to get to where you were before I start going crazy and making it mine. But
Fair
like
enough.
my I don't know, like my clear button isn't working, so maybe that's the problem. And I can't find the Zoom. Where are you? Okay, 1 second. All right, here it is. This is what my calculator looks like.
Okay, so I think your problem is just with the width of the calculator, and that's why everything is like not wrapping properly. So if you go to your style.css.
My clear button don't work though.
Okay, you can fix that next.
Okay.
So style.
What's that thing? This thing is in the way.
Control Option Command H.
Oh. Control Option Command H. Thank you. Style CSS.
And then change your container width to 160 pixels. And that should get your buttons on the rows. Oh, almost. Try 190. There we go. Okay. Now let's look at your clear button. So go to your index.html. We normally start at the top and work our way down. So you've got your clear clicked working, or you got it hooked up to the right function. That's good. So let's go to our script.js. And clear clicked is saying run any button clicked, which is fine. And then document get element by ID screen and set the inner HTML to 0. So I don't see anything wrong there, which means we should go to our browser and pop open the console. And it is telling us cannot read properties undefined reading class list. So what's happening if we go back to our code is that there is an error going on with any button clicked. And because that's not working, it's not running our inner HTML 0 there. So what's happening is you've got this event coming in here, but instead of sending the event in right there, you sent in the word event.
Got it.
Nope. You're now saying it shouldn't be the word event. It should be the actual event getting passed in from the browser. So the next line down, you've got quotes where there shouldn't be quotes.
Oh, okay.
Because you're taking event in getting passed in from the browser and passing that on to any button clicked.
Thank you.
No problem.
And fill out the feedback forms.
You want to read your message aloud, Karen? So it's not me.
Yeah. So the feedback forms that Max has you guys fill out or asks for you to fill them out, it helps because it helps to see where you guys are struggling, and it also helps to continue to get the funding for future cohorts, so that other people can go through the same thing. So I encourage you guys to fill them out.
What? Max, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
Zoom has heard enough of me today. It just was like, screw you. So in Canvas, this daily feedback form is the form that Karen is talking about. And this is super, super helpful for us to know, hey, next week, what do we need? What concepts do we need to cover again? Are we going too fast? Are we not going fast enough? Where are we at? Trust me, no one is saying we're going too slow, or very slow, I should say. So these, I check on this form every night. And I know it's the same link, but we have a spreadsheet of all the responses coming in there. So that feedback is really shaping not only future programs, but what we're going to cover next week and all of that stuff. So going into Canvas, going to this daily feedback link and filling that out is super helpful. Shantina, go ahead.
Kind of just have a off question. I'm sorry if you answered it already. Is the code already pre-made to know the order of operations? So whenever we do math, we can assume that it will do the math in the right order already?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what the eval is doing, is it's basically taking whatever is in the screen and evaluating it as if we typed in that JavaScript directly. And so PEMDAS and order of operations and all of that stuff is built into JavaScript. So we can assume that when we take that input and run it through the eval, that it's going to do the right thing.
Thank you.
Any other questions for this evening? Sorry, guys, my energy levels are like just shot tonight, more than normal.
Mine, next one more question, I guess.
Yep, go for it.
Can't figure it out. Might as well. So, thing is, it's saying cannot read properties undefined, right?
Yep.
And it's almost the same situation like the last. So,
yep, go to line 8. And the problem is it's trying to say cannot read properties of undefined. So it's saying event target. I don't know what the event is where any button clicked is coming in from. So if we looked at our button clicked, it's got the event and it's passing it through to the any button clicked fine. So the problem's not there. So let's scroll down to where else we call any button clicked. Okay, now we have equal clicked, it gets the event, it passes it through to the any button clicked, we're good to go there. And on your clear clicked, you have it there as well. So everything is good there. So let's go back to where your save your script.js. click in the file. Yep, save. Now go back to the browser and let's figure out where it's going wrong. So go ahead and click a button. And it says cannot read properties of undefined reading add on 8. Okay, so let's go back to your code. What happened there is that we clicked the button. Oh, we clicked the button clicked and it went into any button and it got the event here and it says, hey, there is no last thing clicked. So we ignore this line. Then we go to the event target and add in, you know what? I think I know where your problem is. Go to your index.html. Nope, I've got no idea where your problem is. I'm gonna have to take remote control. Let's go back to your Chrome. Refresh, click on 3. It's on 8 on the button clicked. So button clicked, we clicked on 3, the event's coming in. Button clicked. Event. Let's just console log our event and see what comes out. Fresh, click the button. There's our event. And so the event follows through to the any button clicked. Any button clicked ignores this last thing clicked because it never got set. And then it says, go get the event target and look at the class list. So if we say console.log event.target, and we save and we come over and we click on it, we see the button come out. Okay, so that's good. Now we go back and we add in the class list. And we go over here and it doesn't work. It says undefined. So that means that something is breaking between this is working, but as soon as we add this part, it's not. So class is one word, list is another word, which means the L needs to be capitalized. And it's working.
Good night, everybody. Take care.
Okay.
Bye.
Woo.
Larry.
All right.
I'm gonna hop to. Everyone have an awesome evening.
Have a good night, man.
Have a
Good night,
good
everyone.
class with
Good
Latonia
luck with
tomorrow.
with your
And
travels.
thank you. Hopefully I will have more energy for you all on Monday. I cannot tell you the last time I've been this tired. I don't know what I did today, but I will have more energy for you all on Monday.
Okay.
See ya.
Have a great weekend.
Oh, office hours Sunday at 5 p.m. whether or not I'm there or not. Sunday 5 p.m.
Okay.
See you guys.
Okay.